Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Creators. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sherry Pallas. This week's show is on how to find hope, peace, and strength for the holidays. And we've got an all-star panel of familiar faces and friends. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe. I've switched back to StreamYard. So if you're on Facebook, register with them so we can see your name when you comment or have a question. Please keep all comments and questions related to the show topic. And remember, this is a safe space. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Ruth, Kirsten, Michelle, Ray, and Heidi. You all rock and enable this show to go on. If you enjoy this show, consider supporting it. I have all kinds of options to do so on my website, sherrypallas.com. Use the support tab. There are literally dozens of ways to show me and the show support, and buy t-shirts and all that stuff. I'm on Cafe Press and Patreon. But thank you in advance for supporting my work. But more importantly, thanks for being here and welcoming us into your home. I really appreciate you. Okay, on with the show. Let's meet our guests and get a little bit smarter and more loving. First, we have Dr. Christopher Ballew. He is a New Clevelander after graduating from veterinary school and relishes living where the Cubs won their last World Series, while also enjoying his role as a toddler dad. He's a nerd who's interested in natural history and theology with an academic background, including 5 degrees and lots of debt. Growing up as a fundamentalist Baptist, he constantly experienced doubt and dissonance, initially leading him to embrace Catholicism in an attempt to hear God in mystery. He now accepts his doubting nature, becoming why do I always get challenged on these bios? An atheist who engages in beautiful chaos and the contradictions of reality and present. Hi, Christopher.
Hello.
Last week I couldn't say authentically, so now I can't say not even going to try. Thanks for joining us again.
No worries.
Next, we have Carl and Laura Forehand again. They were in the ministry for 20 years. They went through a deconstruction and then left organized religion. They're authors and speakers who founded the Desert Sanctuary. I was on their show a couple weeks ago. Their book that's now out, Into the Desert, is an honest evaluation of organized religion in the 21st century. Welcome, Carl and Laura. How are you?
Good. Good. And I totally feel you with the bio.
Right?
Every bio I read on our podcast, I mess up a word. Someone has to, say it for me. So you're all good in my camp. You're all good in my camp.
I had Bill Prickett on 3 weeks in a row, and I stumbled on that word every single week. I just burst into hysterics last week going, okay, I'm just going to give up.
Yeah.
Word. So Prickett, because it has the word prick in it. Is that?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So I wanted to do this show because I'm a bit of a Scrooge, right? I have a lot of really tragic and bad stories that bring up a lot of laughter and tears about holidays and special occasions in my life. They have always historically been pretty shitty. I could, once from breaking my foot in half, being deathly ill. I mean, just the holidays have always sucked for me, especially with my mom, because she just resented the hell out of it. And a woman who was an evangelical devout hated Christmas, and it would always devolve into her screaming, cursing, and putting up the lights. So it was always a dreaded time for me. And as it got worse, as I got older, I just kind of shut it down. On Halloween about there, I start putting on blinders, and it's like, just get through the days, just get through all this. It's just another day. But as I was talking to Carl and Laura before the show, I realized in putting this all together that that's bullshit. I don't just put blinders on and say it doesn't bother me anymore, because I realize that I've done a lot of writing about the traumas that the holidays have given me. And in doing so, in really finding this out, I also saw across the social media how so many other people are also adversely affected and feel lonely, isolated, and suicides are frankly up every time during this year. So I wanted to be kind of a guinea pig. I know Christopher's going through some stuff too, and hope that Carl and Laura can bring us back to the joy, and we can all come in and say, okay, here's some tactics to get through this time if it's difficult for you, and try to find joy, peace, and love through this time. Mm-hmm. So, who wants to start first?
Well, I can.
Okay.
So yeah, this time of year just frankly sucks for me. So I mean, this year is its own whole thing full of shit. But I pretty much traced it back to the first instance in 1989 when I was 6. My grandma died of cancer 2 days before Christmas, and the last time I saw her or even interacted with her was on my birthday. It was their last public event she went to, and she looked like hell, unfortunately, and it's in my memory. That year, we also my babysitter and my dad's cousin, the same person. He was 22 and drowned in a lake. My dog died right at the beginning of kindergarten.
So we should write an anthology and try and compare how bad our holidays were. And see who wins.
And then you fast forward to 2015. My dad died. My grandma was my dad's mom. My dad died at the age of 58 of a sudden heart attack 4 days before Christmas. The last time I talked to him was my birthday, and I tried. So it was weird because my brother and I had this like weird sense that something was wrong the day before, and we both thought it was my mom, and we were both wrong, and that really sucked, feeling like we didn't think of him being the issue, but also the fact that we kind of felt it coming in a weird way. Yeah, and that just added a whole thing. Then we had to travel out there to Idaho where they were living at the time, and that was a miserable trip trying to get through Wyoming in the middle of
that.
Yeah.
In December.
Yeah. And then that my dad's death culminated a series of deaths of 5 and 7 years, including 2 friends.
Oh wow.
In their 30s. One of a suicide, one of cancer. So I had to start vet school. And at this point, I'd pretty much become jaded with Christmas. And luckily I didn't have, and I'm not saying I guess not luckily, but at that time, fortunately, I didn't have a child that I had to keep, the holiday up for. And then this year, well, actually last year, my now very ex-fiance, well, she had a really bad bipolar disorder, that she didn't really manage well this year. And she left last year, the day before my dad's death day anniversary, 5 days before Christmas. And then this year left right before Thanksgiving and blocked me everywhere and told me just to figure out everything with the utilities and whatnot, which I couldn't figure out the logistics. I was on the first day of my new job. So as a result, they actually got upset with me for not showing up on time and things, because it's a job an hour away. I was trying to figure out new logistics, but
oh man,
4 shifts in, they're already like, you should have this figured out. Why are you late already? And I'm like, what's happened. I told you. And also this like disrupted my life, not just my emotional health. And so like it became a whole thing. Then I became without a job. And like,
oh no,
my birthday. So that same job used my last paycheck to go towards my signing bonus. So I didn't get paid yesterday. And now I have no money.
Oh my God.
sitting here and yeah, so this time of year pretty much sucks, but something I did that was relatively brave for me in the midst of all that was put up the Christmas tree. That's the first time I've ever done that myself. And it kind of felt like a rebellion against the negativity. It was emotionally costly, but
Oh, I bet.
it felt like I needed to focus on someone else with this. And Benito had been asking me about the Christmas tree. Benito is my toddler son. He's 4 now, and he's really into Halloween and Christmas. And The Nightmare Before Christmas is one of his favorite movies. But he kept on asking about a Christmas tree, and I'm like, yeah, I should put that up still. And he's really happy. Like almost every time he comes over, he turns off the light, so the only light is the Christmas tree.
Oh, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
I with my son, I had to keep up the holidays, and being a single parent made it even harder. His birthday is right before Christmas too. So it was like, oh my God, I have to do a birthday and Christmas. And every year he wanted a different tree. He didn't want any of the same ornaments, no sentimentality whatsoever, no history of, look, I made this when I was a kid. It was, why do we have to have the same Christmas tree every year? This is stupid. So I don't miss the tree. This year I kind of do. All my stuff is in storage, so I don't, have anything to even put up. But I know for children that tree is everything, because if not that, where do the presents go?
Right. Yeah. And he's already asking about presents a little bit, but not in like the sense that he's wanting things. It's just the idea of completion, I think.
Yeah. Familiarity.
Yeah. Just having that there for him. I did tell Amanda, my ex-wife, his mom, that I think it'd be wise, even though this year I'm supposed to have him on Christmas, that I'd probably be, considering everything that I've been through and everything that he's been honestly through, I don't want to make the day miserable for him. So I think it'd be good for him to be on a day at a place that is going to be more cheerful. And so I'm like, you can go ahead and take him on Christmas. Just like we'll continue the regular schedule. Like next year, you'll still get him on Christmas. I'll take him on the 23rd, and I'll still celebrate with him. But that way, it's not the day of where I feel like I would be, I guess, a little too bitter, and I don't want to ruin it for him.
You don't think that he could cheer you up and pull your ass out of that?
I'm going to go over to their house, to her house.
Okay.
And still try to be part of the holiday. I'm not. I guess I'm not taking myself out of it. It's just I don't want to be the sole provider of it.
I get that. Having been a child of someone who didn't want to celebrate Christmas, I wish we wouldn't have. I would have rather her not had a tree than have all of these memories of my mother throwing things and screaming and cursing just to put up a tree. I just don't see the celebration or anything when it becomes such a, I was talking to my girlfriend this weekend, and she goes all out for Christmas. She's the one that has all the blow-ups in the yard. It's just ridiculous. She is the crumps or whatever it was. And she was so stressed out this weekend that she had to get it done. And I could only think of, why bother? Why bother? And that's not the spirit, right? Carl, Laura, tell us how to have the spirit. How do we hold on to this? Because I still love everybody. I just ignore the days.
I do.
So really all we can do is tell you our story. And Christopher, I relate to you to some degree because my dad died on December 20th. Right before Christmas, huge snowstorm. And part of the issue, not jumping ahead too far, part of the issue is that we feel like we have to have joy at Christmas. We have to be exceptionally excited, and there's a lot of pressure to be whatever, and it's really a moving target. It's something that everybody portrays on Facebook and Instagram, but we're not really sure what it is because our family wasn't really like that. So I think, Christopher, I think one thing I would do is give yourself permission to mourn. and not to have to be something that nobody can probably even describe, but give yourself permission to mourn. My story is that I had kind of a rich Christmas tradition with my grandparents. We would go to my Nanny and Joe's. They lived in a farmhouse, and they'd pack about 50 people into that small farmhouse, and it was organized chaos, delicious food, craziness till midnight, and we'd drive home and look for Santa. My parents didn't have much money, but they'd find something to give us on Christmas morning. We'd drive to my other grandparents and see them on Christmas morning. He was much different, and his was real regimented. He was a Air Force officer. Boring food. He gave us the presents he gave was envelopes of money. It's just a different story. But both of those were our tradition. And so when Laura and I got married, we tried to make that circuit again. And we lived 3 to 4 hours away. So it took us just a few years, and especially when we got kids, to kind of stop that tradition of trying to drive ourselves crazy, trying to get everywhere. And we kind of made a conscious decision to just stay home on Christmas. And we try to visit them on Thanksgiving or some other time instead of the busiest time of the year. So, but the thing that happened kind of 9 years into our marriage is I became a pastor out of the blue. And I didn't like to miss Sunday mornings, much less a holiday, because at the holidays we're always putting on plays and doing special services and things like that. So being a pastor, I have 4 brothers and sisters that I barely know today, because the time to go home is on the holidays, and we were so busy with church. I think, religion, for me, religion capitalized on my time so much. They wanted my time to volunteer, to help out, to put my kids in bathrobes so they could be shepherds, right? And they wanted my time, and they wanted my money, and religion wants to recruit us, and that's the recruiting days, Christmas and Easter. So all of that kind of played together.
That's why we never went to church. My mom used to call them tourist holidays.
Yeah.
We never went to church on Christmas or Easter or anything like that. We were evangelicals. You would think that we would be in the first row, but she was like, no, it's a tourist holiday.
Yeah.
Okay. My dad's funeral was used that way. So
no, yeah, I wrote something about that not too long ago. So, but what we really need, if we're working hard all year and we get this 2-week vacation or a week and a half vacation or whatever we get, what we really need is just time together. We need to sit down and talk through things. And we just, because religion bypassed our trauma, because all it did was keep us busy during the holidays. We never really sit down and talk to each other. I posted something the other day that just blew up, and it said, maybe what we should have, instead of listening to sermons, we should have been listening to each other. And we didn't ever do that during the holidays. We just invite a bunch of people over and go crazy and call that a good time. But I think what we really need is to be with each other. Now that we have trauma, now that we spent 20 years in ministry, it's just very honestly a lot of hard work now to get to where we're getting to, where we can sit and talk to each other and work through that trauma, and the triggers and all of that stuff. So I don't know, I think dealing with the past, dealing with expectations that we have, both of those things they're big and they're hard.
The expectations are the worst.
Yeah.
It's like every year, this year may be better, and like I said, I've just gotten to the point where I just laugh because, it's hope for the holidays. It's, being with your loved ones. So what do you do if you're alone? What do you do if there isn't anyone to talk to? There's a lot of people out there who are going to spend the day alone. sitting there and reevaluating their life and saying, what am I here for if no one loves me and no one's here for me? How do people get through those times?
Yeah, I think, aside from the holidays and aside from that individual issue, that's been the biggest thing for me, is to learn to be. I'm an introvert. I don't necessarily like being around people, but every once in a while I want them around. But it's learning to be still, and learning to. We went to a quietness retreat where they had segments of 20 minutes at a time that you would just sit still and not say anything, try not to, ask for anything or anything like that, but just be still. And I think that's the big challenge, is to learn.
Especially in the hustle and bustle of the time.
We're called, in the Apostle Paul, not to bring the Bible into this, but Paul said, learn to be content. And Laura and I have been struggling with the phrase recently. It is what it is. And to us, that sounds like a cop-out. But in reality, it's not. It's learning to accept what is.
Embrace the suck.
Yeah.
It is another way of saying that. If it's gonna suck, embrace it. I think that one of the things that we could pick up on if someone is feeling isolated during this time is to revert back to the COVID mentality. I heard that. We've got a child on. Where people were isolated and they decided to make sourdough bread, or they decided to improve on their life and read a book. That would be my advice. I mean, I'm working through with my therapist this whole Scrooge thing that I have, and putting on my blinders, because that isn't healthy either, right? To just say, I'm just going to ignore that all of this is going to be happening, and I'm going to push everything out of my head because there's just too much pain. But you can change your world or change your life by changing the way you see things. If you look at it as a day of freedom, as opposed to a day of isolation, it's your day. One of my favorite Christmases was actually with my ex. There weren't very many favorite times with that, but we went on a canoe ride. He was a Jew, didn't celebrate Christmas. So it was, I am taking this day and I am owning this day as my own, and I'm going to do whatever makes me happy. And we did. It was so not Christmassy, but in trying to find some good Christmases that I've had, or some good holidays, that was one that popped up. So I think, if you take responsibility for your own day and say, I'm going to do me, because there's no one else around, or whatever situation that you're in, where if you feel lonely, if you are depressed, I mean, depression is such a hard thing, but put those shoes on, go for a walk, do something, a soup kitchen, volunteer. You won't be alone there. There are things to get through this time that will help if you take responsibility for your own happiness.
I also think that, part of what helps that for me is staying off social media. I know social media is such a huge part of all of our lives. Well, I think at least Carl and my life, and
obviously.
Yeah. But
Carl.
I would say that even Thanksgiving this year started out really hard because it wasn't looking like everybody else's Thanksgiving out there, right? If I got on Facebook or Instagram, I saw all the families gathering, and literally it was just us. And so I like what you said about, just making it your own. I think something that helps with that is not getting on social media where you can compare, what you do or don't have to what everybody else has. Right.
But that's not even true either. And I gotta throw that out though. I mean, it's fake book, facade. You are seeing that. I remember a couple years ago, my friends went on a trip and I wasn't invited, and I was devastated. I was like, why didn't they invite me? It was my birthday time. And then I found out it was like the worst trip of their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
The pictures on Facebook were glorious.
Right.
But then you hear the reality behind that. So, I mean, comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to compare ourselves to a facade that someone is putting out there.
That's exactly right. And I say that as a teacher, I do a lot of, videotaping of my class in order to kind of help other teachers. Mm-hmm. But, and people will be like, oh man, someday I hope my class looks like that. And I am upfront and honest. I'm like, this was one moment of today, but you didn't see the rest of today and you didn't see the rest of this week when we were a hot mess.
Yeah.
And I'm just like upfront and honest. I mean, the reason I turned the video camera on was because they were actually doing what I asked them to do. And like, oh, I got to record that for me.
Because, like, mark this moment.
I asked them to do, So
that's what she does at home too, because her and my daughter will work with my son all day long and hold him and feed him.
You mean your grandson?
Yeah,
your grandson.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. And feed him and clothe him and, put him to bed and get him out of bed. And then when he's in a good mood, they set him on my lap and take a picture for Facebook, Instagram. It's not what happened the whole day.
It's not every day, all day long. It is.
No.
You're exactly right about that. And I also do feel like, you guys mentioned it, but holidays, there's so much bypassing, right? And not just from other people, but even within ourselves, right? We kind of try to force ourselves to be happy when we may have some real trauma that, we need to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so we don't need to bypass that. We need to be like, this is my reality. This is the shit I'm going through right now. And, again, getting on social media is not going to help with that. But I think it's important, even on the holidays, especially when there's trauma centered around that you have to not bypass that, but say, this is my stuff and I gotta work it out. I've got to deal with it. I think, Christopher, you saying to your ex-wife, and I'm sorry if I have that wrong, but just saying like, it's not good for me to, have our child on Christmas Day. I will take them on, 23rd. I'm like, that is like just having that presence of mind. I think that is huge. And a lot of times we instead are going to be like, I'm just going to stuff my feelings and I'm just going to fake it. And it is not.
And we all fail at faking it.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the best thing for us. It's not the most healthy thing for us.
And see, my ex-fiance is really into Christmas. And so I kind of like being a bit of an empath. I feed off those emotions. I was feeding off the joy she was having. I was looking forward to Christmas this year until that she left. Mm-hmm. And so like, I didn't feel like I was going to have to fake it as much especially with her having, carrying part of the weight. So Christmas this year was going to be fine, like having him and everything, but then that happened. So I just like, I'm self-aware to like realize I don't want him feeding off my negativity towards today, and I know he's going to get positivity from his mom, mm-hmm. and allow him ride that joy that he already has about it, and share it with her who also has joy about it. There was another point.
Well, that's stopping a pattern. So you should definitely be proud of yourself for that one.
So really, there's only three things we can do with pain. Either we can avoid it or quit. We start working out and it's painful, so we quit or stop or avoid it, or we can numb it in some way. And really, what a lot of what church does is numbs it. It distracts you, or bypasses, like Laura was saying.
Mm-hmm. Tells you to fake it.
Yeah. The third thing we can do with pain is lean into it. And everybody has to do that at their own pace.
And no one wants to do that.
No one.
It's so necessary.
Yeah. Whether you're getting in shape or trying to get healthy or trying to recover. Unless we lean into it, it will never change. And, sometimes we need to lean into the pain of Christmas, maybe in July when there's less things going on. But, at some point, we got to deal with it. And Laura and I have been able to work through a lot of our trauma since we've left the church because all the activity's gone. And all the distractions and the bypassing are gone. And now, we can either deal with it, and that happened, where all of it kind of came up all at once, and we did have to deal with it. But then now we can deal with it, and little by little, it's getting better. And this holiday, we had a minor thing that happened, but it was pretty easy to deal with. It's getting easier, just like getting in shape or eating healthy or whatever.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
No, I was just gonna say, and I think for me, being aware, like I really knew the morning of Thanksgiving, the whole day wasn't sitting right with me. It was like there was, sadness. It wasn't looking like everybody else's. It wasn't like it used to be. So I think recognizing, I'm a little sad today, and being able to, for us, being able to verbalize that and that be okay. You know what I'm saying? Like there's nothing wrong with being a little sad on the holidays, or a lot sad on the holidays for that matter. I think, going back to what we were talking about with Christopher, I think having that self-awareness is going to break patterns. It's also going to hopefully set you up for some new, healthier patterns.
And I agree. I was trying to remember the other point, which was, I liked what was said about reframing it. So I still actually observe Lent, but I reframed it. Instead of like taking something away from myself, I actually read and listen to, I read books and listen to audiobooks and podcasts from other groups of people, minority groups, oppressed groups, just anybody who's not in the majority demographic like myself. So like that can include women, because women are an oppressed group, and it's all around like just trying to then listen to other voices within that time rather than make it about me and trying to fix me. It's helping me hear others. So that's how I reframed it. So it's kind of nice to think about how I could potentially reframe Christmas, and in terms of something that is specifically maybe looking at others beyond myself, but at the same time not really making it traditional.
Well, and leaving the church changed everything for me too. And as Carl and Laura said, it changed everything for them. But for me, it was more of a, Jesus wasn't born in this month. This is a full commercial holiday.
Right.
I give presents that are destroyed or not wanted. Why do I need to do any of this?
And it's a pagan day anyways.
Exactly. But learning the pagan roots of the goddess, and that Christmas is actually her celebration, and the wreath is actually symbolizing a woman's opening, the vaginal opening. The tree was done to her. That changed everything for me, because I took it back from capitalism. I took it back from the church, who had just made it everything that it wasn't. And went like, okay, I could do this, girl power. This is awesome. No, it's no longer, I was able to focus back on Mary and what she went through in giving birth and then being isolated for 33 days. That's nothing's ever talked about. Seeing the reality of Christmas and the way that we celebrate it now was no longer authentic to me. But saying, okay, let's look at the older traditions and let's look at this as a day of womanhood. I could do that. I could celebrate that. I could celebrate the birth without needing to celebrate Jesus. I could celebrate the community without needing to go to church. And frankly, one of the best gifts I've ever gotten was a bunch of donations. I gave 28 chickens, 5,000 fish, and 3 goats to a tribe in Africa. It was a gift given to me, which is still the best gift in the world.
Yeah.
Don't remember other presents that people probably cried over, oh my God, I have to get her something or something like that. I remember giving. I mean, I remember getting the cards and going, "Oh my God, 5,000 fish? Are you kidding me?" And backpacks and school supplies. So, I mean, I set a present given to me, set up an entire tribe in Africa, and that is a gift that keeps on giving, and something I didn't need to return, something that will always bring me joy when I think of it. So again, reframing it and making it your own, as opposed to something that you've left, whether it be traumatic or you no longer believe or whatever it is, make it your day.
Yes. Shame. So shame, the voice of shame is should. So you should do this, or you should be over this, or you should, put up your Christmas tree. We're having a little bit of a debate on when we're supposed to put Christmas lights up, when it's okay to do that, and so on.
Yeah.
So you should. We leave our Christmas tree up. It's been up for 4 years now, all year long.
Really?
I
love it.
Not just because we love Christmas, but it's, that voice that says you should have that down by now. It's New Year's Eve. Or you should get it up. You should hurry up and get it up, or you shouldn't put it up before, what is it? Is it it's Thanksgiving or right after Oktoberfest or whatever, but it's those should voices. And part of
I like that.
Surviving the holidays is just saying, listen, I'll do whatever the hell I want. And no one's going to tell me I have to anymore, especially since I don't have to go to church. I don't have to preach a Christmas and Advent and Christmas Eve sermon. And I have to, narrate the Christmas play, and, our kids have to be in the play. And of course,
I do love the Christmas plays that I was in. I have to tell you that. That is, thinking about the plays in the church, and my mom made my outfits, and those are some good memories. Those really are. They had nothing to do with the actual Christmas day. It was the Christmas cantata and all. Those are good memories. But again, it was something that was done as a community. You as a pastor would obviously look at it from a different view, but being that communal, having that thing to give to someone is a highlight of my childhood.
In between two churches, and right after we hid out at big churches, when they'd have this big Broadway play with camels and stuff coming in and all of that. It's just way too much. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say what I'm hearing in all of this is just to give yourselves or give ourselves permission, right? Just give, and it made me think a little bit of our deconstruction journey from church. Everybody's deconstruction journey looks different. Yours doesn't have to look like mine. Ours is completely different from each other. And that's okay. And I think the same thing about, making the holidays your own. You give yourself permission to make it yours. I love what you were saying about, transforming it into this day of, the goddess or, women power or something like that. Hell yeah.
Right?
You do it. That's awesome. And it just even just listening to you talk about that is helping me learn so much more just about other aspects of it. And, Christopher sharing how, he reads voices of marginalized communities and how much we can learn from that. And isn't that really, the beauty of it all is that we can just have so much growth. And I just think what you said earlier, Sherry, is just all this comparison, which is really what we do, that I think absolutely robs us of our joy and just being whatever we want to be anytime, but especially around the holidays.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we stopped focusing on buying gifts at a store and what we could give ourselves and our community or someone else's community, it would dramatically change what Christmas is. Of course, retail wouldn't like it. Corporations, our capitalism would hate it. They're like, shut up. But if we owned the day and said, okay, I'm going to make this what it's supposed to be, a day of giving, and that giving includes myself, I'm going to give myself grace. I'm going to give myself patience. I'm going to give myself a good time, whatever that means.
Right.
That could help take away the shame of loneliness. That could help take away the shame of, I mean, because the anticipation and the expectations of what it's supposed to be, what it should be, what you were saying, Carl, it does bring so much shame. If you don't have that, what are you? And if you get rid of all of those expectations, then it can be a good time. I think I've proven that when I'm not burying my head in the sand and just make it go away.
So give what you want, or don't give anything if you don't want. It's sometimes that's even a borderline. So anyway.
I haven't, with the exception of my grandsons, maybe nieces, I haven't bought anything retail in years because of that. I want something to be unique. I want something, I mean, a couple of years ago, I was watching home movies with my son, and he didn't even remember any of the toys that appeared in the Christmas movies. None of them. And I remembered literally crying, begging, asking people to borrow money, do something so I can put something under the tree for my son at Christmas. So it was, again, faking it for him, trying to make sure this day was special so he wouldn't have the trauma that I was associated with. I'm sure he picked up on it. But again, I put all of this pressure on myself to make sure that everything was okay. And he doesn't remember it. And only thing I remember is the frustration, adding to my habitual, really shitty holidays and birthdays.
Yeah.
I did have one cool family celebration for a while after my dad died, where my brother and I, at least, including our wives, would play Monopoly, because my dad loved Monopoly and he was ruthless. So we would play that, drink something I called a Red Dawn, because my dad, his name is Donald, and he drank a lot of Pepsi. That I think actually the Pepsi stock actually fell a little bit, it felt like right afterwards. And he also drank Jim Beam when he was younger, so I took Jim Beam Fire, added it to Pepsi, and called it a Red Dawn. And so we would drink a lot of those, just kind of celebrate him. Then we all I moved away, and unfortunately my brother and I, as of October, are not speaking to one another, which is kind of hard, which is actually really hard, especially since we could kind of commiserate in our own sadness, I guess. Like, we could support each other during this time, and now I don't have that, so I really am, like, for the first time, I think, completely alone to make it what it is myself. So I'm glad I'm actually getting some advice here on how to reframe it. And
I love what you did with Lent, by the way. Instead of taking something away, you're giving it to yourself. That flip is so cool.
Yeah,
I love that flip.
Yeah, I wanted to make it more positive. I mean, it's often like it's about improving yourself during that time.
Yeah.
So why make it about taking something away in order to improve myself? What about listening to others and adding to myself?
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, so much of religion is denying yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what a great flip.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can do that with so many other things too, like the holidays. I mean, just make it your own. And what can you give to yourself? And as a teacher, I wanted to kind of point this out that, there are a lot of kids in my classroom of various, not religions, but various economic backgrounds. And so, like, I have to be very careful. And I love the way we're talking about reframing it, because I love talking more about what we can do for ourselves, what we can do for others. That's not necessarily monetary.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, because there are some kids in my classroom that are going to get that, whatever the latest and greatest console is, or a new phone or whatever. I mean, I teach second grade. So my first thought is like, no second grader. Like one of my students came in today. He's like, for my birthday, I got a phone. And I'm like, our kids didn't get a phone till they were in ninth grade.
Yeah.
But whatever. But I mean, that's fine. But then there's other kids that are, going to be lucky to have anything under the tree. So I like even reframing it in my classroom to where it's not all about, even Santa Claus, because I think that's kind of a weird message, that
Totally.
you have to be
Good
good,
to get love.
right? That's messed up.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's the whole, I mean, the Santa Claus turns the whole blessed thing right on its head, because with Santa Claus, I saw someone say the other day, whatever you get your kids, put the Santa Claus presents at the bottom. Make sure that the cheapest Santa Claus present, if you're going to get your kid a gaming system, make it from you. Don't make it from Santa, because the rest of the kids are going to say, why did Santa love you more than this?
Yeah, I actually really like that, because actually today I stopped believing in Santa. Spoiler alert, he doesn't exist.
Darn.
It is an adult only show.
Wait a second. I'm going to have to go.
And he's too young to pick up on what I said. So the day I stopped believing was in second grade, when I was like, how is this like spoiled brat bully of my class get like the best presents better than anybody else, and yet like poor kids don't get that much, and I get kind of a mediocre kind of thing. Not mediocre, that's not fair to my parents, but the middle tier stuff.
Again, comparison.
And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I think honestly though, like one of the things that could be reframed as well is explaining to kids that Santa Claus is based on Saint Nicholas and what Saint Nicholas did,
right?
Unity, which was rescue women from prostitution to pay back debts. And we talk about how it's actually another way. It's a holiday about women once again. How it's making the day better, and I think it's a great message of how he was using his privilege and he was an orphan too, using his privilege to actually help people during that time, rather than make it about himself and having the wealth that
I didn't know this story. I love this story.
Like it got to a point where people who were destitute and being, the possibility of they're having to sell their children into, that sexual slavery, they started putting stockings out for coins to be put in, that because he would sneak around and put coins into their socks outside their windows.
Oh, wow.
Or stockings outside their windows. And that kind of became a whole new thing, and that's where that tradition comes from.
I love that. So much better than the way that we celebrate it now.
Yes.
I mean, the patriarchy has made it all about the birth of Jesus. Again, not talking about Mary and everything she went through, having to give birth in a manger or a cave, whatever that, goes to. But it's always been focused on Jesus as opposed to the woman, until I started learning about the history of it. I didn't know about Saint Nick. That is super cool. And that's what I'm going to do, I think, is just make this day about me giving to other people.
Yes. And there's a wonderful VeggieTales episode about this, actually. So I
never seen VeggieTales either.
Yeah, VeggieTales, it's actually really fantastically done. And I love that the creators have, come out in favor of marginalized communities, like starting to do more messages towards that, inclusive. Sorry.
Okay.
But the like the VeggieTales episode about that is like it's Larry sometimes interjecting how the modern day Christmas looks, but Bob trying to explain how how it really was, and so you'd see like snow appears in the middle of ancient Greece, and
Right.
yeah, it's really fun, and it really explains it well, and I
That's
explains
nice.
to the kids how Santa Claus is really Saint Nicholas, and Saint Nicholas did this. This is not the Santa Claus you know.
I love that. I really do love that. The Elf on the Shelf was not part of anything that I knew. It came much later. But again, in my opinion, I mean, anything to keep kids in line, right? Christopher's doing that now. But, I think the Elf on the Shelf, again, gives this whole big brother connotation of you have to be good. And you have, to reap anything. I mean, granted, every week I say walk in love, be a good person, do all of this. But when it's fear-based and reward given, I think you lose the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was creepy. I also hated, everybody knows about this, but the song about Santa Claus is coming to town, that one is like, way to breed paranoia in your children around the time of Christmas. Like, there's it's a history of that in Europe with, especially with like Krampus. Like this idea that you have to scare your children into obedience, or else
Religion.
you could be taken away, or you'll get lumps of coal, or you'll be punished. It's like, why? Like, it's just a cultural control of like one generation to another generation, saying, if you don't obey me, you don't respect my traditions, I'm going to make sure you feel miserable. And
well, again, and if someone can't afford presents, and the kid could be great,
right,
the kid could be the best kid in the world, but if
right.
you can't afford presents, then the whole theory goes, okay, your kid is shit, and so are you.
Yep. I mean, that's like especially what Ecclesiastes is about. The whole like good doesn't matter, because honestly, well, the wicked prosper. So it's one of those things, like, we can't just point to these, like, if you are good, you get good. If you are bad, you get bad.
It's not true.
It's still like that propagation still happens, and it's just not reality.
No.
Yeah.
But you can also see how much like religion just bleeds into just even the secular, like Santa Claus, right?
Yeah.
And all that. I mean, that's a little unsettling for me.
Huge. Capitalism and religion have taken over the holiday. I mean, it was a pagan holiday. Oh, and by the way, so I wrote, it's on Medium, and it's why do we really celebrate this day, or something to that effect. But one of the really cool things that I just loved, and again, maybe you want to set up a Christmas tree, was people used to go and adorn the trees with apples. That's how we got the red balls. So they were giving apples to the gifts as gifts to the goddess. So even back then it was to give gifts, but it was to give gifts of celebration. Not, it was food, it was flowers, those types of things were adorned on the trees as a celebration of the goddess, and the winter solstice, which is the shortest night of the year, but she was represented by the moon. So it was the time that she was with us the most. And again, to take that and say, okay, this is why we have this, not because, in Germany, for like 1500 years, Christmas trees were outlawed by the church. Mm-hmm. And now capitalism has taken over. All of this other stuff has taken over. And now it's just this giant clusterfuck that sends people off the edge. I mean, I can't believe Walmart right now. People are angry. They are violent. I'm not going anywhere near there to the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. Horrible. And to have such a time that's supposed to be filled with peace and joy, that right. is so chaotic and so angry and so hostile, takes all of the love out of it.
Right.
Yeah. And when we talk about giving, and giving keeps coming up, and you guys are alluding to it, and I believe this too, because I think it's so hard for us coming out of, especially evangelical Christianity, to just realize that it's okay to give gifts to ourselves, to care, to self-care. Um, you know, what jumps in our mind real quickly is, well, I should go to a soup kitchen, or I should feed the hungry or something. And those are all good things, right? They're things that it's giving of ourselves, giving of our time, and it's beneficial to us. But the person we need to give gifts to first is ourselves. We need to be in solitude. Being in solitude is saying that I'm important even without somebody else here, and my needs matter too. Um, and so caring for yourself is hard for a lot of us, and we have extra time at the holidays, and I'm struggling not to say should, but why not take some time for yourself?
Yes.
You are able to, you can take this time.
Right.
It reminds me of the flight attendant who always says, in case of the loss of cabin pressure, put the mask on yourself first, then assist those around you. Right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we need to take that advice, not just in the plane, but out into our everyday. Like, it's okay. It is not selfish to decide what you need and, reframe things so that it is healthy for you.
I feel like a lot of us have that kind of messianic complex that we have to save everyone else at the sacrifice of ourselves. And I'm trying to work my way out of that because I felt like for a long time that's what was expected of me. But now I'm like, oh no, I have to figure out things for myself. I have to take care of myself. I have to, do a lot of self-acceptance about the person I am, which I've done a lot of lately. Is like, hey, I'm this way. I'm not going to apologize for it anymore. And doesn't mean I'm perfect. I'm not saying like there are like good things, like the bad things of like, hey, if I'm impatient or something like that. I'm not saying like I just accept that and go on. It's just the things that might be a little taboo in society, and just say, hey, you know what? It's me. I'm not going to apologize for having that. Which is a whole new thing. It's almost like a gift to myself around this time right now. It's kind of nice rediscovering that.
I don't see anything wrong. I feel like I'm going to quote a song, but I don't see anything wrong with owning everything you do as long as you don't hurt others. I mean, as long as self-love is not selfishness. Honoring yourself is dishonoring someone else. Telling your truth is lying about someone else. All of those things, the goodness needs to be reaped, the badness needs to be changed. And accepting those and loving those about ourselves is key, especially because we're supposed to do it for others. If we can't do it for ourselves, then we can't do it for others.
Very true.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to kind of drive at exactly. You said it way better.
Well, thank you. Wasn't trying to reword. I wasn't woman-splaining you.
Oh no! Well, that's better.
Yeah. Well, we are already at the top of the hour. Christopher, Carl, Laura, thank you so much for doing this show with me. I hope that everybody out there who watches this will be able to take something with them that will give them peace, love, and joy through the holidays. Christopher, any final words, and where can people find you?
Well, I don't really have any big blog spaces, but if you live in the Cleveland area, I mean, I'm going to be a veterinarian. So if you have dogs and cats,
there you go.
And reptiles, I do see reptiles too. So, so I see everything but birds. So I'll pop where I'm going in like a couple weeks. So, but yeah, that's pretty much where I am. Online presence. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. So Facebook's just my name, and on Twitter I'm bear named Ballew on there, just to because I do post a lot of stuff on there, just usually progressive things, sometimes baseball things, which I probably should update on my profile for this because I've actually turned into a Guardians fan. So That's pretty much where you can find me. I'm nowhere special, I guess, in terms of the other stuff on blogs.
Well, your input was essential. I appreciate it. Any final words?
Just once again, try to I'm with it with everyone. Like I said, I've been through a lot of shit around this time. And I'm never going to probably truly enjoy the traditional sense of the holiday. It doesn't mean I have to. And
Exactly.
I think it's an important message. Just because I think so many people do, as we talked about, feel the need to sacrifice themselves around this year to make everyone else happy, and that's just not feasible in a lot of cases. Like sometimes, if you have enough cachet to do so, great. But if you don't feel like you're being selfish by giving it to someone else to figure out, and take some time for yourself, because I was thinking of the phrase "physician, heal thyself" during some of this, and it's really true. You need to take care of yourself before you can truly take care of others in a lot of ways. And if you're not emotionally healthy, how are you supposed to project a happy emotional time with people? And so you don't just fake it till you make it. That's impossible in this case.
Well, it causes more psychological issues and trauma.
Exactly.
You can totally do it.
Right.
You're just not going to heal, and you're going to mess things up even more.
Exactly. Always healthy to learn.
Yes.
Add to yourself around these times of year. Like I said, with the Lenten thing, I think learning about the true origins of the holiday and being able to celebrate what those origins are, like especially around the pagan sense, around worshiping the goddess, just learning what all came through it and actually adding to who you can actually start, hearing the voices of, rather than trying to, just be focused in on what you have to be or have to do because everyone else is telling you have to be or have to do. So
it adds so much more fullness to the holiday to understand the real history. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Carl, Laura, any final words? And I actually have a link for you.
Okay. So what we write about more than anything these days is being and becoming. So I would say do whatever you have to learn to be. Do the hard work. See a counselor, do some shadow work. Do a lot of podcasts like this where you talk to each other and learn to learn to be still, learn to be together, and learn to be alone. And then
I love all three of those.
Yeah. And then, as we say, be where you are and be who you are, and then you'll be at peace. Then what you do becomes so much purer. It becomes so much more genuine and authentic. Mm-hmm. That's the be who you are part of it. So, I mean, for me, that's it. To find us, just go to the desert, find the desert sanctuary somewhere. Our book, Out into the Desert, is still in the top 10 today as of my last glance. I look at it about every 10 minutes.
It's hard not to, I'm sure.
About 3.5 months old, and it's still in the top 10 for the Kindle version of it in our category.
Yes, and we still have 3 books of yours to give away? Are there 3 more left?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners, hit me up and we'll get you a book, Out into the Desert by Carl and Laura.
Yeah. We actually looked at each other today. Well, looked at each other is a weird way of saying it. Messaged each other. Texted each other. And agreed to finish another book together. So we're excited.
Nice.
Yeah.
And everybody can stay in touch by going to your website.
Yep. Yes. And we're on Facebook too. The Desert Sanctuary on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any final words? Or you already did that? Laura?
I just, one of the things that I had tattooed on my body a long time ago, and I never believed it until we left the church and we really started doing some hard work, is that you are enough. And I know that sounds cliche, but whatever you decide is your truth and what's best for you is just perfect. It's enough.
I love that. Well, thank you all for coming on and giving such an informative and beautiful show. I appreciate all of your vulnerability and wisdom. I will see you guys backstage.
Thank you.
Thank you. I loved that show. And I hope that you were able to take something out of it and make your holidays more joyous, or at minimum more copable. Try and be merry, celebrate yourself, give your gifts to yourself, and give that gift of love, grace, and anything else. While you're giving gifts, be sure to touch your community, those that are less fortunate, those that are without, those that are lonely like yourself, or your family. Have patience with them, have grace with them, love them, and cherish this time and make it a time to remember. Next week's show, we are doing a talk on Wakanda and how much it impacts all of our lives and the wisdom that it can share. So have a wonderful week. And as always, you know what I'm going to say, walk in love. Mwah! Thank you.